Yo guys, so welcome to today's pod. My name is Joseph. You're joined with Viyash as well. And today we're going to be exploring a book written by Angela Lee Duckworth. And it's about grit, okay? And this book, I've read it, Viyash has read it, and I just thought today would be an exceptional day to talk about such an exceptional book. Because firstly, let me just tell you guys, just off the bat, just give you a bit of an introduction as to who Angela Lee Duckworth is. So she's an American psychologist, right? American academic, psychologist, and a popular science author. Come out with absolute bangers in the past recent times. And as well as this, she has, I think from this book, kind of addressed something that I feel like has been lingering at the back of my mind, if you know what I mean. And when I say lingering, it's this particular statement or this kind of premise that she really covers within the most recent book, which is grit, right? Is hard work versus talent, right? And through her discoveries and her scientific research that she's undertaken in this book, she has uncovered a lot, right? She's developed systems where you are able to uncover how gritty someone is. And I feel like the term grit, which we'll go into, I feel like to some degree is very similar to what discipline represents. But without further ado, let me just start off today's pod with an absolute banger of a quote from Angela Lee Duckworth, and that is, in fact, grit is living a life like it's a marathon, not a sprint. Okay, so Viyash, my question to you, Viyash, is what is grit to you?
First of all, what an amazing introduction. What an amazing quote. Amazing, all around. But yeah, let's my definition, how I see grit. Well, the first thing that I think when I hear the word grit is more like a type of stone, right?
What?
A grit. Because like grit, just like stone, sand kind of thing.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in a way, it's they share the same ideas, if you see what I mean. Because grit, as a definition, is a passion and perseverance for long-term goals.
Okay.
Now, I'm not trying to say that this is like being a stone or a rock, but in a way, stone and a rock, they don't break. They're hard. That's exactly what grit is. Passion, perseverance. You see the link.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's like a passion, perseverance for a long term. You're not being swayed by anything else. You're not being distracted. I don't know if that's the right word, but you're like head down and you know what you're doing.
You're focused.
Exactly.
Okay.
Consistent.
Right. And would you say that's like different from discipline? Because I feel like I don't think that these words are interchangeable, but I think they're very similar in what they represent, right? Because
what's the two words?
Discipline and grit, right? Discipline. Okay. The word discipline, as we know, has the definition of the ability to control our impulses and stay focused on our goals and persevere through challenges, right? So I feel like
they are very similar.
It's really difficult to say, but I think they mirror a lot in some regard. But I think the most overarching thing with all of this is hard work versus talent.
Yeah. And I just wanted to say, in addition to a difference that you might be able to see between discipline and grit, I guess you can be disciplined even if you don't have passion for what it is you're doing. So there's, for instance, if you're doing a kind of sport or some kind of physical activity, like a 5K run, you might not necessarily look forward to it at first, and you might not look forward to doing it every single day. But discipline, not necessarily grit, but discipline is what gets you through the consistency, the initial consistency. And then once you be consistent in the beginning and once you develop the passion for it, that's when I think grit comes into play, because with ways that passion can take you much further than just doing something like a robot over and over. Exactly, yeah.
Okay, yeah, no, I get where you're coming from, because I feel like in our society now more than ever, like we see, it's like, I feel like these things culminate into, we can go off in so many different directions with this sort of thing, because a word that's coming to my mind, or as the selection of words, is toxic productivity, right? It's when I see people who excessively outwork themselves to a point where it's unhealthy, right? And, we see this, I think, more so, it's especially during exam season, there's a lot of toxic productivity. Oh, how many hours have you done for revision? Have you done this? Have you done that? This is the amount of hours that I did yesterday. How many hours did you do? But it's not relatively based on the amount of work that they'd actually get done. They'd say, oh, yeah, I've done 12 hours of revision. But how much of that revision actually is relative to the amount of work that you did? Do they correspond? Do they correlate? Because you could have done, say, for example, Viha, say if you're incredibly productive, you did 4 hours of intense work and you focused well and you were disciplined in what you did. You did 4 hours of intense work, you took 2 hours off and you did another 4 hours after that. You did 8 hours total. Say I did, on the other hand, say, for example, hypothetically, I did 12 hours straight. Let's compare the two. Your level of discipline and grit between that phase of study, I think, would have been far greater than my level of discipline towards that 12 hours. My productivity would have decreased, but I guess then, it's become a badge of honor for me to then go into units that I've done 12 hours. Exactly. But in actual fact, it's really just not the case. I'm sure you've had lots of people who've done that, right?
Too many times, Joseph. I mean, this goes back to the Pomodoro technique and how efficient you are with studying. So it's better to do a really productive 2 hours, even 2 hours, a really productive 2 hours, rather than an unproductive 5 hours or 6 hours.
Yeah,
because you end up procrastinating in those 5 or 6 hours, and that's probably the reason why it's taken you so long to get a single piece of work done.
Yeah, but let me do this then. Let me flip it on its head. Okay, let me put it to you like this. So say you have an individual who is not necessarily gifted. I'm putting it in the context of talent versus effort now, right? Where, say, for example, if so I feel personally that I need to take a lot more time than the individuals in my class, and maybe, compared to the average, say the average pharmacy student, right? It takes a certain amount of time for them to cover a certain concept. I feel like when I cover a certain concept, there are certain processes in place for myself to make sure that, number one, I know the content through and through, and I've made sure that I thoroughly practiced it. And for me to do something like that, it takes, I feel personally, slightly longer. So I think in the context, in the broader context of what I'm trying to say is, I feel like I have to work harder than the average individual on my course to, although not only get the same grade, but maybe get that slightly level high, get that slight competitive edge over others academically. Since I need to invest those hours, number one. But, people could say, oh, it's how you use your time, Joe. It's the way you revise. Yeah, okay, there might be some degree of an influence, but I think personally, the way I take in information and the way I like to lay it out, it's a very structured way, whether that would be writing it online or writing it down in notes and making sure that I'm actually actively recalling it. This sort of thing takes time. And compared to, let's say, some other student on my course, this other student could just, I guess, quickly go over a concept and then be able to understand it through and through without the need of thorough practice. So when we're looking at it from the broader context, so I would ask you, Vihash, would you say that you are a hard worker, or would you say you have a bit of talent involved, or would you say it's a culmination of both?
It depends what context we're talking about, because academically, to a degree, I do feel like I have a knack for certain subjects over other ones, which is why I develop interest in those. But then on the flip side, I know I have to work harder for certain subjects as well. So just like you said, it's like a It's a mix of both. There's no, at the end of the day, it's not really, you can't be dependent on just talent to get you an achievement, or to get you something, or to get you somewhere, I should say. You have to take in both factors, hard work and your talent, progress that into skill, if you don't mind me going on to that, and then add in more effort to progress the skill into the results that you get as a result. And what about yourself? Would you say you have more talent, more hard work, or the same answer?
Said, I would like to say that I have when I go about certain things in the context of academics, right, I feel like I have come from an area where I need to make sure I need to work hard to understand the concept, and then from there I feel like I have grown fluency to then build up my understanding further. So so because of that, and because of the number of hours that I invest and the time it takes for me to, I guess, make sure that I have a solidified understanding in what it is that I'm doing, I feel like there's a component of a lot of time and hard work that I invest towards it, which I guess kind of tilts it on the other side of the spectrum, where you have hard work and then talent. But I guess by no means would I say that I'm talented. I'd say I'm far from that, but more so I invest the time in the right places to make sure that I try and attain those higher end grades. But I feel like if we were to, again, if I were to do this again, let me just throw out the Uno reverse card and throw it on its head, right? And speak in the context of superstars, right?
Okay.
And when I say superstars, I'm sure you know who I'm talking about: Cristiano Ronaldo, Francis Ngannou, and you have say for example, Discipline God, aka David Goggins, who's going to carry the logs.
All my days.
Guy, different level of gravy. But just to put it into context, these are some of the people I think personally have like a different level of grit. Like to see, say for example, Cristiano Ronaldo, he is considered the GOAT, or one of the GOATs of football. You're gonna have all the Messi fans in the comments.
I was just about to say, don't start a huge conflict.
Gonna be mad. Actually, you know what? Speaking of that, we should have a debate about the GOAT.
You should,
yeah. But you know what? I'd say he is one of the greats, and he has done unbelievable sort of things in his past, especially in his career in football. He still has one, Al Nassr, wherever he's at. I think it's Al Nassr.
No clue.
Yeah, but don't worry about it. Listen, a guy who I really want to kind of just touch on a little bit is Francis Ngannou. Yes. This guy came from literally nothing, right? And to know that this guy came from nothing, he was in some town in Cameroon, and then goes all the way to winning the heavyweight title of the world, heavyweight championship title of the world in the UFC. Then from there, he had a bit of a falling out with the UFC, and then he goes off into boxing, goes toe-to-toe with one of the greatest heavyweight boxers of all time, Tyson Fury. Okay? I'd say personally he won that. Okay? Now, some people in the comments are going to say, oh yeah, Tyson Fury should have won that. Well, listen, he got knocked down. Francis came from a sport, MMA, right?
Yeah.
Where mixed martial arts, right? Where you're focusing on multiple different disciplines of fighting. This guy's just gone into boxing and absolutely decked out Tyson Fury. It is really phenomenal to see his come up, to see from where he has come from to the level and heights he has reached. Superstardom. But of course, I've missed a lot of what his story kind of really is, to be honest. What was it that you were going to say?
Now, just on that topic between the two amazing fighters, I'm hoping that they do a rematch at some point. If Saudi Arabia manage to get enough money and pay Tyson enough, if they do a rematch, then it would be beneficial to them both. I think it would be one of the biggest. So I'd like to see that.
Go wild. And another thing as well, I think these countries are taking over sport.
Yes.
No, genuinely, I really can't wrap my head around this, because the fact of the matter is they're taking over esports, and I think esports is going to be huge in the next coming years. Mm-hmm. In the next 10 years, I think esports is going to be huge. They have crazy jackpots for the winners who win these sorts of tournaments, okay?
Yeah.
And they have like the hub or something in, I don't know where it exactly, somewhere in the Middle East. They're going to have like the esports hub. Oh my God, it's going to be absolutely sensational. Not
Probably
only
in
that,
Saudi Arabia.
yeah, I don't know whether it's Saudi Arabia or Qatar or something like that, but they're investing a lot of money into this sort of thing as well. And as well as that, outside of that, I think football, they're literally scoping out retired superstars into their leagues and then making it, I don't know, they've got Neymar, they've got Kante, they've got CR7, Sergio Ramos. Do let me know if I've missed anybody, but those are the only names that really come to my head. Yeah, they're taking over sport, man. There's not really much else I can say about that.
Because they've got all the money to do that. They can bring in all the fame from all around the world. So yeah, it's like you said, esports. I think we should do a different episode on esports because it's such a big. I did a bit of research into it when I was doing a media project last year. So I think that would be worth having a conversation.
100%. We definitely should look into that. But I think as well as this, like, we might have slightly deviated from what it is that we were previously saying. But no, it's cool. But because there's something I've been dying and itching to say about these phenomenal individuals that we kind of already touched on, is that this is something Angela Duckworth says as well. So it's really quoted from her book. Our culture is obsessed with natural talent, but Angela Duckworth's research has found that consistent effort matters more, which she labels grit, right? And as well as this, we want to define grit, what grit really means to, I guess, Angela Duckworth, because she was the one who wrote this book. So grit is a combination of remaining interested in one thing for years and continuing to work despite failures and plateaus. And in all of the people that I just listed, they have experienced failure. They have experienced plateaus in points of their life. You know, I think David Goggins' story in particular, he has gone through a lot, and to see the man that he's become now, it's just crazy, you know. So to put it back into context, let me give it a bit of another spin as well. Have you seen Child Genius?
Oh yeah, is it still on?
I think so. It's on channel. Was it in channel 4? Channel 4 was it?
I don't know. But I used to watch it.
You watch it?
Yeah.
Do you compete in it? I know, as in like, no, not in it, but as in like, would you do the answers as they were doing it?
Yes, I would fail miserably, but yes, I would try.
Yeah. Would you say that, like, within a show like that, it's so, I don't know, I feel personally, in a show like that, there's two types of parents that you have. Either parents who are incredibly, really, really involved in the development of the child, so they are making sure that they work hard day in, day out, that they have assigned activities, that they have extracurriculars, that whether that would be playing the piano or playing the violin, and then another 6 to 8 hours of just studying straight. Or you would have the child prodigy who would, I think they're both prodigies, don't get me wrong, at that age it's exceptional in and of itself.
Yeah.
But to have a child who is self-motivated and, you know, they are very self-driven in what they are doing. There is little to no input from the parent, or some degree of input, but not enough to the average. So say if you had an average child who was brought up by their parent, that the child that they have, who is an absolute prodigy, who is self-driven in what they do, you know, they, of course, that child right there, it will never become what the other child would amount to.
Yeah.
Now, hopefully you guys are still following what it is that I was trying to say. I just threw a child into an equation. I hope you haven't lost you guys. But what it is that I'm trying to say is it hard work or is it talent in that case, Viyash?
It's. I mean, they promote it as it's talent, right? They promote it as these guys are geniuses, and I think one might very well assume that they are just born naturally like that, and they have a knack for whatever it is they're smart in, right? Whether that's memorization, but I think they do also the show Child Genius. They do show the behind the scenes of how they go about remembering content, which is very good because we're able to see, you know, how they revise, how they study, which is all good, and it shows how their hard work. It basically shows how they're not just reliant on their talent for everything. So they are able to put in the extra gear shift and go above and beyond, which is the message at the end of the day from the book as well, that you can't just rely on the talent to get you high achievements, right? You need to be able to put in the gift, and that's what they showed in the program.
Exactly. And with you saying that, I'm sure that there's an equation, right? Angela Duckworth has I think this is an equation which Angela Lee Duckworth has created, in fact, where skill equals talent multiplied by effort, and achievement is equal to skill multiplied by effort. And bearing in mind that in these calculations, it can be seen that effort be counted twice, right? And
Yes.
Angela defines talent, right? She defines talent as the pace at which your skills improve when you invest effort. So achievement, in this case, achievement would be defined as what happens when you take your acquired skills and you use them, right? You're ultimately applying them. So I guess the real message, I feel, which is not really said through these equations, because if you applied this equation to 10 different activities that you're trying to get incredibly good at, you're not going to get particularly good at anything that you're going to really be doing, because you're going to be all over the place, first off, okay? Your headspace is not going to be focused, because let's say you're learning 10 different languages all at the same time. Is that the most appropriate thing to do? No. But I would think that in the context, say, if you are learning a language, say, for example, like maybe Mandarin, and then you're going off into Cantonese or something like that, yeah, I could see that correlation. But to do like 10 at the same time, it's just ludicrous, right?
Yes, I think people, they attribute a number and then attribute that to like, what do you call it? Something to boast about and something to tell people about. And because when someone says, for instance, they're learning 10 languages, in reality, they might just be dipping their toes in each and every one, which is still a very good thing to do, and still requires an element of talent. But as you said, it's unrealistic to be doing that. And unless you've got a lot of time on your hands, you won't be able to do 100%.
It. No, without a doubt. And I think as well as this, like, doing one thing is better than... I think doing one thing is far more, like...
beneficial.
Satisfying. It's beneficial, satisfying. Than, as you said, like maybe staying an amateur in a multitude of different things, right? Because you imagine accomplishment in anything that you do is very much going that extra mile, going the distance. And what's integral with any accomplishment that anybody has is that there was a lot of consistency that was integrated in the long run. Again, which is integral, it's essential for this sort of thing. But I feel like a pitfall which we are all guilty of, that I think Angela addresses really, really well, is the fact that many of us quit. And it's very easy to quit something that you're incredibly passionate doing. So say for example, if there's a side hustle or hobby that you really want to try and get into, but you're looking too much at the numbers, you're not getting the views, or maybe like you lose sight of why you are actually doing it. And I felt, speaking from personal experience, when I was doing TikTok, right, I felt my head was getting too much involved in the numbers, and I wasn't really doing it for this, whether I actually liked it or not. Because at the beginning, I wanted to do it to promote pharmacy content, but then it became a thing where I looked too much at the numbers, and I was like, why am I really doing this? I'm letting this stuff get to my head, and I just ended up just stop making videos. And that's probably one of the worst things that I could have done, quitting. Okay. Viyash, I'm sure there must be some things that you've quit from when maybe not as like a social media thing, but in the context of the grand scheme of things, is there anything that you've quit from that you were maybe learning or doing?
Yes, yeah, no, definitely. And I've also been on the verge of quitting because I've got, like, for instance, a bad result, or I've had like dark thoughts come in because something hasn't gone my way, for instance. And I think that's inevitable. Especially, I think this is amplified when you're passionate about it. When you're passionate about it and you have, you hold yourself to a high standard, especially, and you really go for something, and then you fail, that sets you back even more because you don't expect it, and because you know all the behind the scenes and what it really means to you. It can have an even worse impact on an even worse impact on your mindset following the event. And I just wanted to say, backtrack a bit. Sorry, when you said that you want to be pursuing one single hobby, and that's more satisfying for you, 100%, yes, that's true. But I think there's a term called an all-rounder as well, which I think can't be brushed away as much, because I think it's just as good, if not better, to dip your toes into well, not even dip your toes, using the same analogy, using the same metaphor, to dip your whole leg in, or half of your body into a different hobbies or different interests, different side hustles, because then you get an overall understanding. And I think you could utilize that to pursue something, because you might, I mean, they call it something like you don't realize you like something until you try it, or something and by being able to dip your toes in it, as long as you're dipping your toes and giving it your best in what you do, then you'll realize what benefits you the most. I mean, an example for me was I tried a lot of musical instruments when I was younger. So my parents put me up to piano and violin, which I think they were like standard instruments for almost every child who is doing music now. And I continued that for some time, and it sort of withered away. Violin withered away slowly first, because I wasn't seeing much progress with that. And unfortunately, answering your question, yes, I did quit because I wasn't seeing much progress with that. Now that I think of it, now that I look back on the videos, it sounded like a dying cat. I was playing the violin, right?
You should insert a video. Yeah.
But oh my days, yeah, maybe some point down the line. But piano, I enjoyed, and I got a bit more further. My dad got a keyboard as well, so that sort of fueled me on. But then I tried the drums. And this was like the first instrument that I started because I liked it myself, and I wasn't really pushed on by anyone else to do it. So because of that, I was able to go much further, and that passion has sort of been the fire kindling me on to keep progressing onwards. And at first I went exponentially high, and then I've sort of flattened out recently. So it's just a matter of how much you like what it is you're doing. And again, going back to what I was saying, I wouldn't have known that if my parents hadn't pushed me on to do music in the first place, right? So if I didn't do any musical instrument in the first place, I probably wouldn't even ended up playing the drums now.
Really?
So, yeah.
Wow.
Yourself, I'm going to spin that question to you.
Okay.
I don't really know what I said I'm going to spin the question to you. I don't really know what my question is.
I think it was to do with I think it was like failure or something that you've dropped in the past or something.
Well, no,
exact question.
Yeah. Well, I'll just ask you this then. Have you ever been in a scenario where you're dipping your toes in something and then realize you don't like it?
Yeah. I guess. Okay. I think being a pharmacy student, right? You're exposed to so many different segments of the industry, okay? Whether that would be community pharmacy, hospital pharmacy, or even industrial pharmacy. There are other aspects as well, but these are very mainstream areas of thought. Bit of food for thought in that regard. And going into the course, I wanted to try everything, okay? And I knew, right, that community pharmacy would be... Well, I didn't realize it was going to be the first thing that I was going to try, but it ended up being the first thing that I tried during my time while I was at university. And I felt personally, I just don't see myself in an area like this doing something like, working in a community pharmacy full time. I just feel like it just didn't suit me. I really did enjoy the aspect of that one-to-one, helping out patients in that regard, helping out my local community. And I work in a community pharmacy at the moment as well. And there's so much that I learned from this. And there's something I can't stress enough in that regard as well, is that community pharmacy, if you work in community pharmacy as a pharmacy student, you will learn ridiculous amounts. But that's only if you play around with your time well. Because you need to know, say, if you are going into a community pharmacy, I feel like I learn a lot of the legal aspects when I'm working, because I need to, of course, know the legality of what it is that I'm doing, the control drugs that I'm dealing with, what schedules they are, and whether that I'm actually able to, say, for example, if there's a Schedule 2 in the cupboard, making sure that I appropriately screen the prescription, make sure that the pharmacist is happy for me to take the CD key. That's only after asking the pharmacist, and the pharmacist then supervising me taking the correct medication out of the CD cabinet. As well as this, there are other opportunities that, this kind of leads on to, but I'm not going to go into that. But just to put it simply, community pharmacy is something I enjoyed, but it's not something that I see myself doing in the future. And exposing myself earlier on in the course to that was integral. Number two would be hospital pharmacy. I made sure to do as much hospital experience as I could to get that bit of an eye opener into the field that I was trying to break into, which was previously I had a true passion, and I still do to this day, for hospital pharmacy, and it's something I really do, see myself in possibly doing sometime in the future. Okay. But after doing 3 hospital placements, I learned a lot, and I felt like there are its advantages, there are its disadvantages. But again, I do encourage all pharmacy students that is within pharmacy right now to proactively search for placements to do, whether that would be community or hospital. Now, the big boss of them all is industry. Now, this is put on a bit of a pedestal in the context of actually being a pharmacy student, because you kind of see anybody who goes into industry, wow. Because there's a lot of effort, lots of interviews that are required, and a lot of prerequisite knowledge that you're kind of really going in with. So when applying to industry, GSK, I really didn't think I would get in, okay? And bearing in mind, the application process and the level of effort that was required to apply for such a monumentous thing, this journey did not start back in June when my application started. This journey, in fact, started back all the way in year 1. That is when I was making my CV every, redrafting it and making a new CV every 2 to 3 months. I was continually developing and adding on new things. It wasn't really year 1 that I kind of really, got behind the making of the CV, but I tried to so that I could apply for hospital placements back in year 1. I didn't get any, which was a shame, but I learned from it. Okay, cool. Yeah, we roll with the punches, and we kind of dealt with the cards that we have. Because COVID, what can I do? It is what it is. Going from that second year, again, not only did I apply for every single hospital placement offered in the country, but it was only really tailored towards third years. Again, you have COVID going on. It was very difficult. I got one interview. Guess what? I got rejected. Again, it is what it is. You learn from these experiences. But bearing in mind, I spent a lot of time creating tailored cover letters to a multitude of different NHS trusts across the country. And it's something that I was really passionate about. Getting placements, getting hands-on experience. I wasn't able to do that. However, I hit the jackpot. I was able to work in community pharmacy for I think a year and a half technically. But I ruptured my Achilles during that time as well. So that year and a half, kind of only amounts to a year of work, part-time work. But again, invaluable experience that you learn from these opportunities. Going on from that, the final stage. Now, I got an AstraZeneca interview for a summer placement. Again, this was incredibly hard to get as well, because application process, whatnot, having to... Okay, long story short, I went to the interview, got to the final stages. Unfortunately, I didn't pass the interview stage. Again, you learn from your failures. No matter how many times you fail, you pick yourself up, you dust yourself off, and you find a way to succeed. And I was like, okay, damn, this is so aggravating. You know what? Forget about this. It is what it is with the AstraZeneca situation. I'm going to find a way to find some other form of experience. Probably one of the greatest things that I could have done, because not only did I apply to 3 different, I applied to quite a few actually, but I got 3 offers back from University of Plymouth, University Royal Devon Exeter, I said that wrong, Royal Devon University, no, Exeter, Exeter hospitals. It was like Royal Devon University Hospitals or something like that. I can't remember, RDUH or something like that, and Oxford University Hospital, right? Having landed those placements and then going into my interview for GSK, because my application for GSK started in June, I had these placements in, I think the whole of July, 3 weeks back to back to back. And then coming off these placements and then going into my interview, having learned and done all the things that I've done previously in the past, it was really, it's really put me in the driving situation, in that I was able to draw on my experiences. I felt like I was able to project my thoughts and reflect anything that I could say, given whatever question that they were asking, and vocalize it in an appropriate way. Because, say for example, they would ask me about, say, a very simplified but very broad context situation about, tell me a bit about yourself, and immediately I think about the GSK values and so on and so forth. But I think beyond that as well, the ability to communicate my ideas and thoughts kind of came from going to these experiences at all these different hospital placements, working in community pharmacy. All of this experience adds up, and as well as that, the failures, because where I thought I had my pitfalls in the knowledge which I didn't necessarily have, I made sure to level up on that knowledge going into this GSK interview. And I think that brought on my success to then successfully land pre-reg. Now, that is a very long-winded story, and I do apologize.
No.
A lot of time and effort that took towards this sort of thing.
No, I can't imagine. And what you just told us there is a prime example of just the sheer determination, and that's how you managed to get through it, isn't it? I was just going to say the other thing was, with those examples that you had in mind, there weren't necessarily just downsides to I hate to say it, but you not getting through or you failing, essentially.
Yeah.
Because you also had the experience that you took on board, the experience of being interviewed. Even if you didn't get through, you have that experience of being interviewed. And I think that mindset of, okay, just because it didn't go to plan doesn't mean that everything is going wrong and for essentially the worst of the worst, right? You want to have that ability to see the positive, even if it doesn't go well.
Yeah, without doubt. Yeah, and I think particularly to the program that I applied for, research and development, that's something I've always been passionate about. It's been a desire of mine to pursue research and have some contribution. Now, of course, we'll have to see down the line, of course, but to even get successfully selected for this kind of position meant so much for me at that given point, because not only had I invested so much time in the past, and as you said, failures, but you learn from failures. Failure is what allows you to kind of develop on your downfalls and pitfalls that you have, because if you're always getting W's all around, you're getting ego boosts left, right, and center. What are you exactly going to get out of that? You're going to get absolutely nothing out of that. Let me ask you this, Bihesh. Have you ever been in a situation where you've been taking nothing but W's? It's only ever been boosting your ego, but you've been thinking, okay, you know what? In retrospect, looking back on this, anytime that I've failed or anytime that I've, say, got something wrong, I've always found a way to come back from that and always develop. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yes, 100%. And yeah, when you said that, right, my mind goes to karate, and the reason being is because when I first didn't pass, so you have gradings every couple months, right? From white all the way up to black, and the gradings, they get, the time in between the gradings get larger and larger, and the reason being, or the idea behind it, is so that you have more time to work on yourself and work on your skills, develop them, so that you meet the requirement to pass the grading, right? And up until first dan, so black belt, I was able to pass all of my gradings, which I was really happy about. So in my mind, well, the whole point of the grading is to see how much you've improved from the last time, right? But I didn't really understand this when I went for my second dan. So when I went for it and didn't get through one of the elements, I was completely confused, because I thought I've had 2 years to do this. I've practiced a lot. So why have I not passed? Initially, that's what I thought, and I think that's what most people would think, right? But then it took me some time to reflect on what happened, and I realized that half of the things, or half the reason why how am I going to phrase this? Half the reason behind the difference between achieving something and being good at something is a mindset, which, I mean, I'm one to speak because I don't really do this in all respects myself, if I'm being completely open about this. But when I realized that it was the mindset that I need to switch on for the fighting aspects of it, I was able to get through for the grading. And that's when it hit me that in that specific scenario, it's not just about being skilled at something or thinking that you're really good at something just because you've passed on everything else beforehand, right?
Yeah.
You're constantly developing yourself, constantly improving yourself, and you need to retain humility at the end of the day and understand that there's not really a peak of the peak. Like it's the quote, isn't it? You can't be the best because there's bound to be someone better than you in the world, right? So, based on those past experiences, that's exactly what I was met with, to be honest.
Damn! Oh my gosh! You know, I was just thinking about a random anime scene which I was watching. I don't watch anime. This must have been some random edit that I've seen a while back because, you know, I know what edit this is. It's a mad edit. I'm not even gonna say it.
You want me to put this in like the?
Nah.
You told me to edit after, and I'll put it in.
Edit is a bit mad. It's a bit mad. I'll show you.
Okay.
I'll show you after though. It's pretty funny. Nothing wrong. You guys probably see it as well. It's pretty funny edit. But regardless, there is something I did want to add on from what you've just said, because what you just said is really just the epitome of what, because Anthony Duckworth has just gone and done that. I feel like it is resonating of what you just said. Okay.
Yes.
It's truly resonating and reflecting back to this statement I'm just about to say. Okay, because skill is only developed through hours and hours of beating at on your craft, right? And is that not what you just said about your karate, about staying at your craft, and possibly not ascertaining to that level, but you were possibly questioning and doubting yourself. But also, skill isn't the same thing as achievement, because although you've got that black belt, is that going that level beyond that? First dan, second dan. So I guess black belt, first dan, that's a belt in and of itself. Then second, and you have third, and so on and so forth. But without effort, the fact that you kind of showed up, showing up is number one.
Yes.
Okay, all day, every day. The fact that you showed up, but without effort and talent is nothing more than unmet potential. And I think potential is a big word, particularly
I wanted to say this.
About rising to the occasion, being your true self. You have potential. Each and every single one of us have potential as students, as whether that would be academic student, athletic individuals who are pursuing a career in sport. Yeah, those kind of students, right? Unmet potential. Skill without effort is nothing more than what you could have done but didn't. Okay, that's.
I just wanted to say with that quote, potential. There's this like preconceived idea that you get famous or you achieve something based off of one event, right? So I'm trying to think of like sports is the. Let me re-say that again. Sorry, I'll mark this.
Okay, no.
Okay. Just based off that quote that you just said, potential, right? There's this preconceived notion that all of your fame and all of your achievements is dependent on one single event, so one single good thing that you did, right? But the common example is like when an athlete has one famous boxing match, they're suddenly held to a really high standard until they drop off by losing their second boxing match they're following. Yeah. And after that, you never hear about them never hear about them again, right? And that's, I don't know if it's an issue with how we see achievement, so to speak, or how we see champions in that respect. But if just because you have potential, it doesn't mean that you're going to be constantly winning and constantly being famous or constantly achieving, right? You're going to have to. Potential is just like where am I going with this? You have the ability to achieve at some point, but I'm just repeating.
Yeah, I get what you're trying to say.
You see what I mean?
Everybody has potential, right? But through a level of consistency and hard work, they can achieve what they are. Let's say, so you have potentiator. I like to think of it as action potential, right? You have potential, but you require action potential to spike you to that level of stardom, to spike you to that level. And like with what you just said about the level of athletes and the kind of level that they're working at, they're kind of seen as these crazy figures, right? That a lot of people look up to. Wow, what an amazing individual. But they're also human beings. They can also lose. They also have failures. Understand, they are like us. They are human beings, you know, at the end of the day. People have their wins, they have their losses. But when an athlete goes on a flurry of wins, they are worshipped. Conor McGregor in his prime, that guy was worshipped. Prove me wrong. I tell you, this guy, there was so much talk about this guy. And don't get me wrong, phenomenal athlete, whatnot. But when you go on a flurry of wins, and then most recently, I believe he's lost 3 fights within the UFC, if I'm correct in saying that. You know, he's inactive. He's not fighting as frequently. 3 consecutive fights, if I'm correct, because I can't remember what.
I think the reason might be at that point, right? If you've had your legacy, you've got all the money you need. The only other reason that you might be fighting is to either like get back at someone you lost to in the past or get more money. Right? So that's probably the reason why he's not doing as many fights nowadays. It's the same with Tyson Fury.
He'd lost to Dustin Poirier, someone who he had won against within the featherweight division. He had gone up into the lightweight division, and Dustin Poirier now, he's a different level in the lightweight division. Conor McGregor fights him in the lightweight division. He loses to him in the first fight because he'd kind of he broke a bone in his leg or something, because it was something to do with how Dustin Poirier checked his kick. And he fell to the ground and he got stretchered off. However, had a rematch and he got TKO'd. No. I think I might be getting these events wrong. I think he might have got TKO'd in the first fight and he broke his leg.
I think you are right, because I do remember heaing that he got injured after the match. He
got TKO'd in the first fight, and then he got stretchered off. Listen, guys, I'm going on a bit of a tangent, but we don't hear much of this exceptional athlete anymore. I think, going back to what Vihesh was saying, unmet potential, everybody has it, and it's about how you use the potential that you have to your advantage. It just goes back to consistency ultimately,
and it's also about. It's also what you expect out of what it is you're pursuing, right? If you just have this like single path that you just see glory at the end of that path, and nothing else, then that might not be as beneficial to you, because you don't see all the downsides, or you don't see all the potential downfalls that you have on the way. And when they do hit you, you're like, oh wait, what's going on? This goes back to what I was saying before with the karate aspect. And you do lose something, you're like, wait, that's not meant to happen, and it throws you off. So you need to be realistic, and you have to expect, regardless of whether you have, like I said, everyone has the potential, but you need to have the realistic expectation of what's going to happen when you pursue that interest or passion of yours.
Without doubt. And like going from that, right? Potential is one thing, but I feel like developing discipline and grit is what allows for potential to thrive.
Well,
right?
Yes, Joseph. And I'm so glad you said that, because I'm thinking we should do this into a second part and talk about.
You have read my mind.
And we'll talk about in the next one how to develop this whole group, basically the behind the scenes of what happens for champions. I think that's a good title, you know.
You know what? That's a phenomenal title, in fact.
Amazing.
And the way that you've just put it, I feel like puts us in a great position to round off today's pod, right? Okay, so to put it into summary from my perspective, right? I think talent is overrated. Effort and hard work is what counts, okay?
Yes.
And consistency W's all round. That is at the top of the hierarchy over anything else. And I think you could assimilate that with it being hard work. But you can also be consistent, but not work 12 hours every single day, but say work 8 hours spaced out every day. So say, for example, someone's doing, 12 hours a day for 7 days. Boom, quick maths. 84 hours a week? Boom, that's crazy. As opposed to someone who's doing, let's say, 8 hours a day for a week, that's 56 hours. Do you see the difference between 56 and 84? It's a bit of a jump, right?
Yes.
But you can understand what it is that you can do in your spare time in those hours. But back to what it is that I was saying. Consistency beats everything. Everybody has that action potential inside of them, right?
Yes.
Sodium-gated ion channels. Just come on, guys. You guys are watching you, You know what I'm talking about. That's A-level biology, right?
100%, yes.
Yeah? Have you done action yet?
100%, yes.
Okay, you know what? I'm going to just go with that. I'm going to roll with the punches. And Vihesh, have you got anything else to say on this part?
On this part, no, I think you've hit the nail Wait, what's the phrase? You hit the nail with the hammer on the head. Something like that. Something like that.
You know what? I can't even remember it. You know, it just comes off the tongue because
that's true. I shouldn't have forced it. All right. Anyway, we'll speak again. We'll meet each other again in the second part.
We'll meet each other again.
So,
Bad.
I don't know how to close this off.
You know what? I'll close off. Guys, thank you for tuning in today. JXV Pod, aka greatest pod on this planet. Please stay tuned to more uploads. We have got more bangers coming out and in stock for you guys. And a secret project as well as that. You know, I'm going to take that secret project out because these guys...
we have got a secret project.
Yeah, you know what? It's
currently we're working, guys. We're working, and you know what?
Stay tuned, guys, because we have big things on the way. It's been myself, Joseph, your co-host today. It's been your co-host, Vihash.
Me. Oh, Vihash.
Yes. And thanks for joining us today. Signing off. This transition.
No, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. I'm not.
Stop the recording, man. Stop the recording.